Okay. We're holding at a Mishnah on page and Daf Nun Hey Amud Aleph, correct? Yeah, 55. 55a. I think Hashem that they're playing Torah every day. And especially for learning, we should have the Mikdash immediately. Okay. Moshe, you're going to be back for Shabbos?
Yeah. I'll be getting right for Shabbos, but then I leave early. So.
Okay, safe travels.
Thank you.
I'm going to be in the yeshiva for Shabbos. I miss you.
Yeah,
okay.
I get to see you every few months, so that's good.
Okay, so let's take a look over here. It says, Kol menachos nilashos bepaishin. All menachos are needed with a K, needed, with, right? The need. Bepaishin, with lukewarm water. But you have to make sure that they don't become chametz. Now, of course, we're talking about the menachos that don't become chametz, right? We said there were exceptions to that. But the Menachos said you still use lukewarm water, and there's a mitzvah to make sure that they don't become chametz. So you use the lukewarm water, and you make sure they don't become chametz. So the Mishnah now adds in that let's say the remnant, not just the kaimetz, but even the remnant of the mincha, what the kainim are going to eat. If you make that into chametz, if you allow that to leaven, allow it to rise 19 minutes instead of 18 minutes, right? So then, Oifer Belesa say he violates a negative prohibition, and the Gemara will explain what the source is. Shenemar kol. Okay, now apparently this pasuk Shenemar is not going on the shirayim not become chametz. This is going on in general that you have to make sure that it doesn't become chametz. Shenemar kol mincha. This pasuk is in Vayikra. Any mincha that you bring to Hashem should not be made chametz, because any sourdough or any honey should not be brought as a fire offering to Hashem. Okay, v'chayev. The Mishnah continues. V'chayev al lishasa v'al v'al. When someone does make the mincha, he makes it leavened, so there's several parts, several activities, procedures in the mincha. It has to be baked, but before it's baked, it has to be the bread needs to be arranged into loaves. That's called arichasa. Before that, it needs to be kneaded. Now, each one of these, if any of them are done chametz, so then there's malchus for each one. So, which means basically you can get 3 times malchus on one mincha for making it chametz. Pretty wild. Okay, the Gemara says, Minani Mili, how do we know this? The Gemara is asking, how do we know that the Shirayim as well has a prohibition of, you can't make the Shirayim chametz. You think, well, the remnant of the mincha, it could be like the remnant of any carbon. I can eat it barbecued, I can eat it, boiled, right? What are you looking up?
Remember about the honey.
Right. Right. In the same passage. In the davening we have it. End of the Keteris. So, Minani Mila, how do we know this? Rish Lakish quotes a pasuk, says Lo Seyafa Chametz. Now this pasuk is a little bit later. This pasuk is in Parshas Tzav. So the first pasuk that we said, Lo Seyasa, was in Parshas Vayikra. It's one parsha later. It says it shouldn't be made leaven. Then we have a quote a pasuk over here. It shouldn't be baked. Shouldn't be baked chametz. Chelkan, I want to read the pasuk to you because the comma is being moved a little bit. It's Perik Vav. You see what pasuk? 10. Yeah. So it says over here, Pasuk Yud. Well, let's go back to Pasuk 9. Aaron and his sons should eat whatever is left over from it. It should be eaten as unleavened bread in a holy place. Right? Not chametz, matzah, right? Unleavened bread. They should eat it in the courtyard of the tent of meeting. Okay, now it goes on. The leftovers, in parentheses, the leftovers in this chumash, the leftovers should not be baked leaven. I have given it to them as their portion from my fire offerings. It is the most holy offering. So in the Hebrew, it's Loi seyafe chametz, chelkam nasati yoisa miishai. What our Gemara is doing is it's reading it the way the translation here has it. Is Loi seyafe chametz chelkam. Their portion should not be baked chametz. Now in the trup, that's not the way to read it, because it goes like this. Loi seyafe chametz chelkam nasati yoisa miishai. You hear the pause. That's a katain. It means that's a pause. It shouldn't be baked chametz. It's talking about the whole mincha. Their portion was given to them as like a chatas and but the drasha goes chametz chelkam. Their portion shouldn't be baked chametz. The raya that the leftovers, the portion that the kainim are going to eat, shouldn't be made chametz. Okay, so Reish Lakish says afilu chelkam loisei chametz. Gemara asks, that pasuk in Parshas Tzav is coming to teach me, that Chelkam is coming to teach me that even the Shirayim can't be made chametz. I already used that pasuk for something else that was taught in a brisa. Brisa quotes the pasuk leisiaf chametz. Return the page. Should not be baked chametz. Ma Talmud Laimar. Why do you have to tell me leisiaf chametz? That's in Parshas Tzav. If in Parshas Vayikra you already said leisei chametz, you already said it shouldn't be made chametz. Why do you have to add in it shouldn't be baked chametz? Shouldn't make it chametz is the same thing. So Yachal, I could have thought. I'm sorry. Lefishin leisei chametz. If when it says leisei chametz, Yachal leyehi chayev ala achas al kulam. I could have thought when it says you should not make it chametz. I could have thought that maybe only be chayev malchus once. For making the whole thing chametz. Made it chametz, one malchus. So Talmud Laimar, the pasuk says, Loi teyafe fia bichlal haisa v'lama yatzis lahakeshela ma fia miyuchedes shemais yechidi v'chem lefnei atzmai afani avel lishas v'richas v'chal mais yechidi sheba lasi yekitav shemais yechidi v'chem lefnei atzmai. Okay. Question goes like this. This is the brisa. Brisa says, I could have thought that the only chayev once. One smalkus for making the mincha chametz. So therefore, that's if it would have said, don't make it chametz. But then it goes on and it says, don't bake it chametz. Why is it specifying baking? And he said the general thing to make it means the general, everything, all inclusive. Why do you specify one specific act, the baking of it, shouldn't be chametz? It's coming to do a comparison. That just like the baking is a unique action, an independent, unique action. So, maisi yechidi, something a chashava action. That it's a significant part of the process, and yechayev just for the baking of it. So too, we're going to do this comparison. We're going to say that each independent action is going to be chayev malchus on its own. What is coming to include? Coming to include also the arranging of it, that means making it into loaves, and also the kneading of it, and any independent action. And coming to include with any independent action, you already said baking, clearly in the pasuk. You already included in that the arranging of the loaves, which could be braiding or just making it into a loaf, and also the kneading. So it says it's coming to include also kituf. Kituf has two interpretations. Kituf is, Rashi says it means that they would put water on the top of the dough to make it smooth. They use oil, they would put. Okay, it's a minor action, but they would put this water on top of the dough. Maybe it stops the rising or something. I don't know. They put the water on top of the dough. That's also considered an action. Yechayev malchus for that as well. We thought Yechayev malchus 3 times for doing this for each independent action. It turns out there's another action here. Could be a fourth action that you could be chayiv malchus. Okay, basically, just to summarize back to what's our question, we said that leiseyaf chametz is coming to tell me that the shirayim can't be chametz. It's not true. Leiseyaf chametz is telling me that each independent action is another malchus. So how could it teach me the shirayim? The Gemara answers, Anan mechelkam kamrin. I'm not learning from leiseyaf chametz. I'm learning from the word chelkam, their portion. Their portion is the shirayim. So in this pasuk, I can get two things. I can get that every independent act is another malchus, right? Just like a carbon has a bunch of processes. So too, the mincha has another bunch of processes. Each one, if it's chametz, is another malchus. Plus, we'll also learn from that the shirayim can't be chametz. Yeah.
Because it was longer than 18 minutes, so it became chametz. So the other steps and set them up.
No, if it takes longer than 18 minutes, it becomes chametz, right?
Oh.
Now, the korban mincha is not allowed to be chametz. So the kohen goes and he continues doing it. He starts to he needed it. He makes it into the bread. He needs it. So that is chayiv malchus for that. Then he comes along and maybe another kohen or maybe he himself comes along and he arranges it into loaves. Chayiv malchus again. He's up to 80 malchus. Actually, not 80. What is that? 78. 78 malchus. Then he does it again, right? This is getting tough. So it's not 120, but it's 117, right? So so it's okay. So he's going to get all these different malchus. Okay, and then also a second thing that we learned was that from chelkam is that the remnant should not be chametz. The Gemara asks, Veima kula lahach yudasa. Maybe all it's teaching me is just the shirayim. How do you know it's teaching me at all about the arranging and different sets of malchus for each part of the process? Maybe the whole thing. Maybe that's the whole pasuk. Just telling me that the shirayim, the remnants, should not be made chametz. Gemara answers, in kein lichtav chelkam leiseyaf chametz. Then it would have put the word chelkam, which means their portion, first, and it would have said their portion should not be baked chametz. The fact that it says it should not be baked chametz, their portion, coming to tell me first of all it shouldn't be baked chametz. Then it's also coming to tell me chelkam. Yeah, let's eat, kids. Right?
It's very soft.
It's to divide that up. So it's two separate clauses here. But it turns out that the second clause we're putting it back in to tell me that their portion should also not be chametz. But first it tells me that it shouldn't be chametz. Okay. My leiseyaf chametz chelkam. Why does it say it like that? Shamet mina tarti. It's going to teach me two halachas. The ema, another question the Gemara asks. The Gemara is going to go back and forth on this limud. The ema afia deparat barachmana l'chayiv chada. Einach l'chayiv chada kulam. How do you know that each one of the activities, the processes of the mincha, is going to be a separate, independent malchus? Maybe there's two malchus in total. One is for the baking, and one is for everything else altogether. Maybe that's what it means. And the Gemara explains. The Gemara answers, "Mishum dahave davar shaya b'chlal." It's coming up to Pesach. It's the famous one is on Pesach. Remember, it says 6 days, 7 days you should eat matzah, right? Then it says 6 days you should eat matzah. But it says the seventh day used to be part of it, but now it's not part of it. It's coming to teach me that just like the seventh day, it's not an obligation to eat matzah. You're just not allowed to eat chametz. But if you don't want to eat matzah, it's fine. You can eat whatever you want. You can eat broccoli. You can eat whatever you want to eat. Potatoes. So it's rishus. It's only voluntary. So too, all 6 days are also only voluntary. The only obligation is to eat matzah. Is to eat matzah on the night of Pesach, erev teichel matzahs. But that's the famous davar shahaya b'chlal v'yatza menachla, one of the 13. Which one is it? It's number 12, probably. No, it's number 11, and in the 13 of 13 ways of terrorist light. So one of them is something that used to be part of the general, but left the general. It's not coming to teach about itself. It's coming to teach about everything. So over here we have another example of this. Afiya, the baking of it used to be part of the general. It used to be part of don't make the mincha chametz. And then we specified. It used to be part of it. Now we specified. We singled it out. Why is it single it out? Not to teach it about itself that there's malchus. It's coming to teach about everything that has malchus, right? It's going to teach that each one of these processes is going to have an independent malchus. Okay? Very nice. Ve'ima loiseyase klal. Let's go back to Parshas Vayikra. Parshas Vayikra says you should not make it chametz. And then loiseyafe prat. Then don't bake it chametz. And Parshas Tzav is the specific. So we have a generalization, and then we have a specification. So what's the rule? Klal prat. The rule is ein bechlal ala masha befrat. Just lost that whole limit. Maybe we should do a different limit. Instead of saying that's coming to teach me that each one is an independent malchus, really it's coming to tell me that there's no malchus on anything except for the baking of it. Because the klal prat ein bechlal masha befrat. Afiya in midechrin aloi. Only the baking, nothing else should be malchus. Gemara says, Amar Rabbi Abturiki says, you have anything on Rabbi Abturiki? We've had him before. He comes in. It's not so common, but he comes. I've seen him. Comes around. Yeah. Abturiki, second generation Amayra of Eretz Yisrael, also called Haturki, was the son of Dostoi. He would teach Brises in the study hall before Reb Chia. Only a few statements of Abturiki are recorded in the Talmud. Okay, very nice. Reb Chia was a student of Rebbe. Oh, that's Reb Chia Barabba. Reb Barabba was a student of Rebbe. Okay. So Rabbi Tariki comes along and to tell us why it's not a klal prat. He says, Mishum Davi klal prat hamerchakim zemizeh. It's too far, too many psukim away. It crossed over the boundary of what's considered a klal prat. This is in Parshas Tzav. This is in Parshas Vayikra. V'chol klal prat hamerchakim zemizeh, and then it's a klal prat. You can't make it a klal prat. Okay, it's not a klal prat. So what is it? It's a davar. It's a davar shahaya b'chlal v'yatzim min haklal alamid l'lamin atzmi atzalam l'klal kol yatzim. Also, Rav Barav v'amri lak kedi. We're lucky today. We get a kedi. Rav Barav asked, and also some say that it was kedi. Kedi is this famous machlekes if kedi is someone's name or if kedi means anonymous. Kedi means for nothing, and so it could be his name was kedi, just the name, or it could be. Okay. Maybe it was Ravada Barava, maybe it was anonymous, maybe it was Kiddy. Okay, that's one option. They're not identified, or maybe they also must have that. His name was Kiddy. They must say that. Do they have that in it? In the notes? They don't say that? Okay. Because Rashi says Shem Chacham, so they have to have that.
Yeah, Rashi.
Okay, that was his name. So this is the question. Uklal prat. If it's a distant, you make a klal prat. We don't say that there was a generalization and then a specific. And what's the rule? That ein bechlal ala masha befrat. The whole generalization just gets minimized down to that one specific detail. But we have a brisa says like this. Now this pasuk, the brisa quotes a pasuk that's referring to a nasi, a melech, a king that does avera. Yeah, nasi shachata. It says v'shachat oisoi b'makam asher yishchat es ha'oila lifnei Hashem chatasu. That his chatas has to be slaughtered in the same place where an oila is slaughtered. We know where that is. That's on the north, right? Where was an oila, a burnt offering slaughtered? B'tzafin. Okay. So af carbon zeh b'tzafin. Also, his carbon needs to be on the tzafin. Brisa goes on. It says v'chiyanu mikan l'meidim. Did we learn it from here? Let me take a look at where the pasuk is. Let's see. It's in Vayikra Daled, Chaf Daled. Back in Parshas Vayikra. First, it has the communal sin offering. Now it has the leader's sin offering. If a Jewish leader sins unintentionally, they should bring a male goat as his offering. He should lean his hands on the goat's head and slaughter it before Hashem in the place where the burnt offerings are slaughtered. If it is slaughtered with the specific of being a sin offering, then it is a valid sin offering. Okay. So, pasuk says, Gemara says, is that where we learn that it needs to be in the tafin? Like Farnemar, b'makam asher tishachid ha'oila tishachid achatas. Funny, it says, well, like Farnemar. It actually happens to be a pasuk later. Parshas Tzav. That's interesting that he uses the word kvar. But we already said. What did we say? In Parshas Tzav, it says, that's 6:18. Perek Vav. Pasuk 18, Pasuk Yitches. Says here, Hashem spoke to Moshe saying, additional laws of a sin offering. Daber alarn b'alban avlim v'zoysteres achatas b'makam she'tishachid oila tishachid achatas. I have a pasuk, a general pasuk that teaches me that it needs to be slaughtered on the tzafin. Every chatas has to be on the tzafin. Why do I need a specific one? So halamazeh yatza. Why do I need specifically by the carbon of the nasi that it has to be on the tzafin? The Brisa answers, it's coming to tell me that if you didn't do it on the tzafin, on the north, slaughtered it on the south of the courtyard, it's going to be puzzle. That's what you're telling me it's coming to teach. Maybe it's coming to tell me that this is the only one. The pasuk that says that, which seems to be a general pasuk, it's only speaking about this specific one. When it says Talmud, so the pasuk, therefore it says a third pasuk. This goes back in Vayikra Dalet Chavtes. Goes back. I have a third pasuk. And so I know that all chatais need suffer. Okay. So Taima, the Gemara explains like this. What's the reason? Taima, the reason why we needed the third pasuk, the kasav rachmana v'shachet asachatas, that if not for the third pasuk, halav hachi, if not for that, hav amina, zetan tzafan vein the acher tan tzafan. I would have thought that only the nasis, the leaders' sin offering would require the north. Other chatais won't require the north. My taima, la misham dabi klal prada, must be because it's a general and a specific. I have a general rule, a general pasuk that says that you always slaughter a chatas in the place of the oila. But then I have a specific one. So I could have thought that maybe the whole specific, the whole general is just referring to that one specific. Even though one is in Parshas Vayikra, one's in Parshas Tzav. I have one kasha. That the Vayikra one is the prat. The Tzav is the klal. So it's not a klal of prat, it's a prat of klal. What do we have and what do we say? Klal of prat, prat of klal. It's a prat of klal. How does that prat of klal work? Not the same way. Yeah. So the Gemara is going to say this. Okay. So it says, Maskefla Ravashi asked the question, this question that we're asking. Hi klala pratu. You're telling me this is a klala prat? Hi pratu klal. Pratu klal. It's exactly the opposite. Yeah. because the pasuk in Parshas Vayikra is the specific, and later comes the general. And how does that work? Nasa klal ma'asav ala prat v'srab l'kol mili. It works exactly the opposite. Works exactly the opposite. It becomes more inclusive, right? Includes everything. Ella, Gemara explains, Tana oisai kakashale. Tana was concerned about the word oisai. So why? In other words, the reason why we needed the third pasuk was not to tell me that it could have been a klal of prat and it would have restricted the whole klal down to one specific karban. No, that's not the explanation, because that wouldn't have been a klal of prat anyway. It would have been a prat of klal. The opposite. It would have been a specific then generalization. So rather, so what was our concern? Why do we need the third pasuk? Because it says in the pasuk "Isai it." Now Isai would have told me that only it. Isai kakashale bachi kamer. Ayeno shezeta safan vein achata safan kasrachman Isai, because it says Isai. So therefore, I need the third pasuk to tell me that all karbanos, all chatais are included, and they all need to be batzafan. Okay. Hashta de nafkale mi v'shachat es achatas. So Isai l'mutimai. So now that we're not learning from Isai to exclude all other chatais, because we have a third pasuk, so why Taka does it say Isai? Why does it say the word Isai? So the Gemara says l'mu'ute nachshain v'shachat. I don't know what that stands for. Oif b'Pesach siman. We're going to get, in here, we're going to get a bunch of answers, what the Isai is teaching me. Where's the Isai? It's in the pasuk in Vayikra. It says, no, it's not in the Tzav one. It's in the Chatas Nasi. It's not by the go back, and it's in the Vayikra pasuk. It says the leader's sin offering. V'samach yadi al Risha Sar v'shachat Isai. It says Isai back in Parshas Vayikra. Perik Dalet pasuk Chaf Dalet. Slaughtered it. So that Isai. So what do we need the Isai for? So it comes to tell me that Lemu'ute Isai batzafen vein sar nachshen batzafen. The nachshen on Rosh Chodesh coming up. This is Shabbos V'Varchim. So on Rosh Chodesh Nisan, nachshen also brought a chatas. Seir izim echad lechatas. Izim echad lechatas. He brought a goat. And that chatas did not need to be slaughtered batzafen. Chiddush, right? Usually,
Was it on?
no, we said all chatas need to be on batzafen. That's what we learned, right? Could have thought there was only the king, but we have a third pasuk. So then why does it say Isai? It's coming to exclude one chatas that's not batzafen of nachsha. Salkadait chamina could have thought hayol vis rabbi linyan smicha. Since it's considered a chatas, you have to hit smicha on it. You have to lean on it, right?
But they said that for commoners it was a female, and then here.
Yeah. So it wasn't. There was a goat as a chatas. It doesn't matter. The fact is, it's a chatas, so it should be batzafen. It says I could, and especially because it needs smicha. So this rabbi nami linin batzafen, it should also be included in the chatas that it should be on the north. Mashmalan, I say that it's not on the north. Smicha gufei minalan. How do we know that he needed to put his arms and to lean on the chatas? How Nachshon did this? It says the Tanya. We have a brisa. It says b'samach yad el Reish Asar. The brisa quotes the beginning of the pasuk that we've been dealing with. B'shachar Isai by the leader's sin offering. First, it starts off with he leans his hand on it. B'samach yad el Reish Asar. Could have said b'samach yad el Reishai. Why did it say al Reish Asar? The rabbi sar nachshen. The extra word could have used a pronoun. The fact that it said it specifically is coming to include Rabbi Sainachshin l'smicha. Rabbi Yehuda. That's what Rabbi Yehuda says. Yeah, Rabbi Yehuda, Rabbi Loi, right? Rabbi Shimon Aimer, Rabbi Shimon gives us something else. He says, "L'rabbis seirei avodas kechavim l'smicha," coming to include the sar of avodas kechavim. If a person does avodas zara, shegeg brings a sar. Well, it says maskef l'Ravina. Who's Ravina asking to? Asking on. I know, but who? Ravashi. Ravashi says that how could it be a klal prat? It's a how could it be a klal prat? It's a prat klal. Rather, we're using the word oisai. So Ravina asks, Teinach Rabbi Yehuda. According to Rabbi Yehuda, we understand that what the word oisai is doing, it's coming to exclude nachshan, that it doesn't need to be on the north. But Reb Shimon, Mayek Lameimar, what are you going to do with Reb Shimon? Reb Shimon doesn't say anything about the north. So what's oisai coming to teach me? And then the Gemara adds in, Amalei Mazuch Beid Rav Mari Ravina. Rabbi Yehuda Nami. My Desrabi is Rabbi, my Delay is Rabbi, Lay is Rabbi. You don't need an exclusion. You never said that it needs to be on the north, so it doesn't need to be on the north. You don't need the word "oisai" to exclude it. Maybe I do need the word "oisai." Maybe I would have said that if without the word "oisai," I would have learned from a binyanav. Binyanav is a precedent, where it says, if you had a binyanav, then smicha dufei lishtekra minei v'teisei. So then why do I have to include it for smicha? Teisei bebinyanav. I could have learned smicha for with the binyanav. The fact that I needed to include smicha. How did I include smicha? Because I said the samach yad al reish asar. I needed an extra word, sar, to tell me that you have to lean on it. It wasn't automatic just because it's a chatas that you lean on it. It was a unique chatas. This was different. So the fact that I needed a pasuk to teach me that there's smicha, but the word sar, so I don't need a pasuk to exclude it from tzafin. I would need a pasuk to include it into tzafin, right? So Ella rather shami ders le'alfinan. So why did I need a pasuk to include it in smicha? Because there must be, because this is a hirasha. This was a specific karban that was done just for the inauguration, right? The dedication of the temple was the karban of action, and so just because in every other chatas I do it differently, this is a different story. So shami ders le'alfinan. I wouldn't have known that you have to do smicha unless you have a specific pasuk. So chanami shami ders le'alfinan. So also when it comes to tzafin, I never would have known that it's on tzafin. You tell me it's a chatas and every chatas is b'tzafin. This is different. Shami ders le'alfinan. Every chatas is because that's done for all generations. But this is just the dedication offering. Dedication offering is different. So I wouldn't have known. So back to our question is that oisai. This is Rav Marzuch's question. Ravina, even according to Rabbi Yehuda, that says that Nachshan's carbon didn't need to be betzafin, but he's not using the word oisai to exclude that because you would need a pasuk to include it. The same Nachshan.
Like, how was Iran so long?
What do you mean? It's the same year. He jumps in the sea and they build the temple. They build the tabernacle.
Oh, the
Mishkan, yeah. Yeah, it was the same year.
With the base of English, I was like, what?
Same year. They built it, jumps into the sea on the 21st, I guess, of Nisan, right? 7 days later. And then when is the Mishkan dedicated? Then following year, Rosh Chodesh Nisan. It's within the same year. Well, Nisan would be the cutoff line. It crossed by a day. Yeah. Okay. Ella Isai Tan Safin Ve'ain Sheikhet Oimed Batsafin. So now we have a new pshat. That what is Isai coming to exclude? It's coming to tell me that only the karban needs to be on the tzafin, but the sheikhet doesn't have to be on the tzafin. Isai, shachar Isai, it should be. The Gemara says, really? That you're learning from Isai? That means the Rabbi Achia nafka. We know this from Rabbi Achia. The Tanya, Rabbi Achia Aimer, shachar Isai al yarchem mizbeach tzvayna. This is by an oila. By an oila, which is the origin of the whole concept of slaughtering on the north. It says that he shechted on the edge of the altar on the north. Mata malaymar, what's this coming to teach me? Lefisha mitzina b'mekabel sha'imid batzafin and mekabel batzafin. I know that the person that's receiving the blood, he has to hold his vessel, that he stands on the north and receives it on the north. How do you know that? It says v'lakach hakayim midam achatas. The kohen takes and im amad bedaraim b'kibel batzafin pasel. If he's standing on the south and he's receiving on the north, puts his hand over, that would be invalid. I could think also by the sheikhet. Okay, it's a good teretz.
Is this the case we learned previously where the sheikhet had a very long blade and was standing outside?
Maybe. Yeah, maybe. No, we had this in other cases where about someone that was not a kohen and he couldn't go in, and he maybe could slaughter from the outside. That was another discussion.
I don't remember the case.
Yeah. So actually, what we just did over here was we actually disproved our teretz, because our teretz was that Isai is going to tell us that the sheikhet doesn't need to be on the north; only the animal needs to be on the north. So the Gemara asks, but I know this from Rabbi Chia. Rabbi Chia says that. He already learned it v'shachad Isai by the oila. So what's the Isai? By the carbon of the nasi, the chatas of the nasi. So ella Isai batzafin ve'ein ben oif batzafin. Rather, only the chatas is slaughtered on the north, but not a bird. A bird is not slaughtered on the north. Because I could have
learned about the malika on top
on the mizbeach, right? I could have thought that maybe I should have a kal v'chaymer from an animal. Ma ben saints like kaval like kayin, just like by when it comes to an animal, whereas for an animal, you don't need to use a kayin to do the shchita, but kaval like tzafin, but nevertheless you still need north. Benoif shekaval like kayin. And when it comes to a bird, where it's much stricter, where you need to use a kayan because you're doing malika, in a din shenik v'lei for sure it should be on the north. Yeah. The Gemara says, "Mala ben tzayin shekin kavalei keli." That's not a good kal v'chaymer, because by you need a keli, a holy vessel to do the shchita. But by the bird, you just pop its head off with your finger. That's not so that's more. It's less strict. It's less strict. So you think maybe you shouldn't need the north. Ella Isai batzafin ve'ein Pesach batzafin. Rather, the Isai is coming to exclude carbon Pesach. That's interesting. Let's go back to the siman that we gave before for how many answers we're going to have. It says nachshain b'shachat oif b'Pesach. Okay, so this was the last answer. Coming to tell me the carbon Pesach doesn't need to be on the north, only the carbon of the sin offering of the nasi. Where it says Pesach, Midir Rabbi Elazar ben Yaakov nafka. I don't need Isai, I know it from somewhere else. The Tanya was taught in Bryce. Rabbi Elazar ben Yaakov Aimer. Rabbi Elazar ben Yaakov says Yachol Ye Pesach Tan Safin. Maybe I could have thought that the carbon Pesach needs to be on the north. V'dinu when I have a kal v'chaymer to say it. Ma Eilish leikabel as man b'shchita. Whereas for an Eila, where you don't have a designated time when to do the slaughtering of an Eila, anytime of the year you want. But nevertheless, kavalei b'tzafin, but nevertheless it needs to be on the north. I have a specific location. Pesach shekavalei is man l'shchitas, and it didn't shekavalei b'tzafin. Carbon Pesach that has a specific time, for sure should have a specific location, right? The Eila that doesn't have a specific time, it has a specific location. So the Pesach that has a specific time for sure should. The Gemara says it's not a good Kal V'chaimer. Ma'layla shekain kala. Layla is entirely burnt. So that's why it has a specific, like it's much stricter. Korban Pesach isn't burnt, it's eaten. Gemara says, well, the Korban Pesach is considered communal or private, but every person brings their own. Is that communal? It has two sides to it. It's partially. You can look at it two ways. The Gemara says, mechatas. Says, well, a chatas is eaten, and it also requires the north. So if that's the case, then Pesach that has a designated time for sure should require the north, right? We thought that maybe the oila has the north because of a specific reason, because it's much stricter. It's entirely burnt. So that's not the reason why it needs the north, because the chatas also needs the north. It needs to be on the north. So the Gemara says, no. Chatas needs the north because it atones for very serious sins. The Gemara says, well, Asham. What about the Asham? The Asham needs the north. It's done on the north as well. And it's not for such serious sins. It says, Mal Asham can't kachi kachim. Okay, but the Asham is kachi kachim. It still is a holy of holy sacrifice as opposed to the Korban Pesach. The Gemara says, Mikulu Nami Shekain kachi kachim. Even if you put all three together, the Oila, the Chatas, and the Asham, you still won't know that you need to have the north by the Korban Pesach. Okay, so 1 second. What did we say over here? We wanted to say that the Isai is coming to exclude the Korban Pesach on the north. We said we already know that from Rabbi Elazar ben Yaakov, because Rabbi Elazar ben Yaakov made a Kal V'chaimer.
No, the original thing was with the slaughter.
Yeah, originally we had Nachshon. Nachshon doesn't need to be on the north. Then we switched to the slaughter. Then we said the bird. The bird doesn't need.
And the slaughter are not the same.
No. We're up to answer number 4 now. Answer number 4 is that that now it's the Korban Pesach doesn't need to be on the north. That's what I say is coming to exclude. So we said, but we know this already from Rabbi Elazar ben Yaakov that the Korban Pesach doesn't need to be on the north. And he says that, no, you know why it doesn't need to be on the north? Because I can't learn it from any of the Kal V'chaimers. I know already it's not on us. What do we need Isai for? Allah Ilam Kedarmin Mikar. We have to go back to our first answer. Isai, well, not the first one, the second one. Isai Batzafin Ve'ena Sheichet Batzafin. The slaughter, the Sheichet doesn't need to be on the north. But you know that already from Rabbi Chia, because he learned that from another pasuk that the sheichet doesn't need to be on the north by the oila. So it says Rabbi Chia lavlemuti sheichet betzafin adasa alahachi kama. Rabbi Chia wasn't teaching me that. He was saying something else. Eina sheichet betzafin ava makabel betzafin. He was saying that the one that's receiving the blood does need to be on the north. Why? So, okay. So it says Mekabel milakach. Vilakach nafka. Lakach vilakach. Why does the Mekabel need to be on the north? Because it says Vilakach, and he will take. Referring to just like the animal needs to be on the north, so too the one that's receiving the blood. Just tell me. Second.
Right, this is a well koch can be read low koch takes from himself, meaning that he has to stand himself on this.
Oh, really? That's.
Huh.
Ena sheikh with some makabel tzafen. That you saw in Rashi.
Well, it says Rashi as amended by Shita Mekubetzes. I'm reading it in English.
V'lakach hakem midam achatas makabel atzminol v'lakach loy yikach. So yeah, you're right. What's this Yudalid here? Takes himself to the north. Okay. Let me see your commentary here for the class, please. It says, why do we need? The Gemara asks, so why do I need a site to teach me that why do we need Rabbi Chia? Teach me that the Makabel is on the north. I know that from the Lakach. So the Gemara answers Lakach v'Lakach le'mashma. He doesn't learn. Rabbi Chia doesn't use the Lakach, which tells me that if he doesn't use V'lakach, then he's going to learn from that, what was Rabbi Chia's original teaching? He says, by the Oila. The Shachar Isai by the Oila is coming to tell me that the Sheikhet is on the north, and so too the Makabel is on the north. I'm sorry, the animal is on the north, and the Makabel, the one that received the blood, is on the north. He's not telling me anything about the Sheikhet. So where do I know that the Sheikhet doesn't need to be on the north, that I learned from Isai by the Karban of the Nasi? Okay. All right, we're done. Thanks.
This is worse than getting an Uber at Kennedy. You have to go to the end, be on the north side, specific place.
Let's go a little further, yeah? It says, V'chayiv al ishasa v'al richasav al afiyasa. The Gemara says that you chayiv malchus 3 times if you bring it the mincha as chametz. Amar of Papa, Afa lekeshtayim. One that bakes it gets malchus twice. Achas al richasav, achas al afiyasa. Once because he arranged the bread, and then once because he baked it. It says, V'amrit ma'afiyah mechedesh imayis yechid v'chayiv lam b'fnei atzma. But he said that afiyah is an independent action, and you chayav on it alone. So why are you telling me that he's automatically chayav for arranging it? It says like kasha, hada arechu v'afahu, hada arechabre v'yav levafa. Where you said that he arranged it, that he. Well, one case is where he baked it and he also arranged it. Other one was where someone else arranged it and he baked it. So then, if someone else arranged it, then he's only going to be chayiv once. If he did both, he's going to be chayiv too. Tana Rabbanu, started in the Bryce. B'chor shach sidam, a firstborn animal is really a karban, unless it has a mum. If it has a mum, then it gets eaten by the kain. So here it gets sick. Problem is, when it gets sick, the old-fashioned way of healing someone sick is bloodletting. So sometimes when they do bloodletting, they might end up making a mum. You're not allowed to make the mum directly. The mum has to come naturally. If you want it, the kain wants to eat it, not as a karban. It has to come naturally. You can't put the mum inside. Here, the problem is that for medicinal reasons, he has to make a mum. So it says, So it says, Makizin oisai esadam b'makam shein oisai by mum. You have to do the bloodletting in a place where it won't make a mum. You can't do the bloodletting in a place that it would make a mum. Wherever they do the cut, it has to make sure that there's no mum. Divrei Rab Meir. If they would make it on his ear, on his eye, or on his lip, they would do the bloodletting from there, they would end up making a mum. Chachamim say, it's not a problem. You can make a mum, and only thing is that's you can't rely on that mum to now say it's not a karban. You have to wait till it gets another mum. Now, regarding the medicine, don't worry. That you can take care of. You want to go ahead and now rely on that to shecht it, that you can't do. Reb Shimon says, Af nishchad alaysim mum. Reb Shimon says you can even shecht it because of that mum. Now, Reb Shimon, if you understand how Reb Shimon works, Reb Shimon always holds that davar shein miskaven is pater or mutter. Reb Shimon holds you didn't intend to make a mum. That's not counted. You intended to heal. So it's not counted like you did a mum intentionally because you didn't have that intention, right? Rabbi Yehuda was always the opposite. Rabbi Yehuda says, afilu mace, even if he's going to die, in makis and leisadam, you can't do any bloodletting, even if there's no mum, because we're afraid that you might end up making a mum. Be this the opposite of Reb Shimon in this. So what's the machlekes over here about bloodletting that on a bukhar, that way you might make a mum where you're not allowed to do so intentionally? Yeah. A mum is not a treifa.
They did a mum because I was gonna die.
They did a mum because the animal was sick. Now, if they make a mum, then you can still slaughter. It's not treif; it's kosher animal, and you can slaughter it. And
No, Hilo's asking if he's sick, like, he means sick like to die within a year.
Yeah.
I mean,
oh no,
Hilo
that's not, it's not a treifa, that type of thing.
just had a cold.
Right. Rab Chia bar Abba, Rab Yechanan.
It was for clown.
Rab Chia bar Abba says, Tal told me that when a man gets sick, he writes a will. When he gets when he gets a cold, he writes a will. He thinks like, like he can't handle it. Anyway, Rab Chia bar Abba, Rab Yechanan, Rab Chia bar Abba, you mentioned before Rab Chia bar Abba. Rab Chia bar Abba says, name Rab Yechanan, Kol Moedim b'mechametz acher mechametz shu chayev. If someone adds leavening to this mincha, it's still going to be the second person is also going to be chayiv. The first person made it into chametz, right? And the next person is going to be chayiv as well. So, what this means is that the one that we're talking about, the shirayim over here, but we're talking about the person that kneaded the dough, made it chametz. The person that arranged it is continuing with chametz, and so everyone is going to be chayiv. Ksiv leisiyasa chametz, leisiyafa chametz. It says don't make it chametz and don't bake it chametz. And the same thing applies. V'mesaris acher mesaris shu chayiv. Not allowed to castrate an animal, and someone castrates an animal, and then someone else comes and how does he castrate him again? I don't know. I guess it's different activities, that different processes to castrate. If he does something else, he cuts to this, he cuts to that. So what are these extra? Just could have said, if he cuts that organ, it's chayev. Al neisek, if he pulls it, neisek means like to remove it. Like kolshkin, for sure he's gonna be chayev. If he just makes a slit, he's chayev. So sure, if he removes it, he's going to be chayev. Why do we have all those words in the pasuk? It's coming to tell me that if the person makes just a small cut that makes it that he can't procreate, then someone else comes and cuts it more, so it's also going to be chayev. Only machlekes is that if there's a bechar that has a mum, and then you come along and make another mum. And maybe you're right, Dilla. He's considering the fact that he's sick as a mum. So Rameir Savar, Rameir, I guess, means the Tanakam. Rameir holds, Kol mum la'yia by any mum it should not have. That means even if it already has a mum, you can't make another one. Rabbanan Sabri, Tamim Yelaratzin. The Rabbanan say that it should be perfect. It means if it has a mum already, then there's no problem. It's not perfect. It's not perfect, right? The perfectionist. If it's not perfect, then it's nothing. So you can make a mum. Rameir Nami, Yaksiv Tamim Yelaratzin. What does Rameir do with the pasuk of Tamim Yelaratzin? Why is he saying there's a prohibition to make a mum in it? It's not a carbon anyway. It says, that's coming to tell me that if it was born, with a mum, then you're allowed to put a mum in it. It says Balmumni Kara Dikla Ba'almo. That's not even a karban. It was never a kaddish. You're telling me a bechar that's born with a mum it was never a karban. For sure, it's not a karban. Ella Lamute Psulim Makdashim. It's coming to tell me that if a different type of animal, not a bechar, a different type of animal that was a karban gets a mum, lachar pidyainam, after if it gets a mum, then you redeem the animal and you use the money for another carbon, right? And this animal your person can eat. I could have thought, since this animal used to be the X carbon, which is now eligible to be eaten, but you're not allowed to do work with it, and you're not allowed to take the sharings of wool from it, because you're not allowed to treat it just like a regular mundane animal, because it used to be consecrated. So, maybe if that's the case, you also can't make a mum in it either. Mashmalan comes to tell me that if it's not a carbon anymore, you can make a mum in it. But by the Bechar, that's a different story. Rabbanan Nami, according to the Rabbanan, what are they going to say about, you see, our question till now was, what does Reb Meir do with the Rabbanan's pasuk of Tamim Yel Ratzon? Now we go to the Rabbanan. Rabbanan Nami, Ksiv Kal Mum La Yibay. How are you allowed to add a mum, even though it has one mum? It says no mum should be in there. Any mum shouldn't be in. It says Umi Bay Leila Ketanya. That we need for another brayse. It says Kal Mum La Yibay and Leilish La Yibay Mum. Minayin La Yigrim La Al Yidei Acherim. How do you know you can't cause a mum? Maybe you could be allowed to put a dough on its ear. And that way a dog is going to come and bite the dough, it's going to end up biting his ear, and it'll have a mum. Talmud Laimar Kal Mum. Amar Mum, Amar Kal Mum comes to tell me that you're not allowed to even cause a mum. That would cause it to... Okay. Amar Rabami. Rabami says, you put sourdough on top of the carbon mincha. And then the like the vapors, or the not just the vapors, but you're not mixing it in. You're leaving it there. So, and it becomes leaven just because this sourdough is right on the dough. You didn't mix it in. You just put it there. Chayav alek ma'aseh Shabbos. You chayav just like cooking on Shabbos. Cooks on Shabbos, you just leave it there, right? And it's cooking. Gemara says, "Ma'aseh Shabbos ki agavna michayav." You're not chayav on Shabbos like that. Amar Rav Chana says, Amar Rabbi Yochanan, hiniach basal gabi chalim. You put meat on coals. So hipach by chayav. Only if you turn it over, you chayav. We're talking about you put it there on Erev Shabbos. Lo hipach by pater. You don't turn it over, you're going to be exempt. It says, Amarav, my chayiv nami the kamar. What did we mean? He said that you're chayiv, just like Shabbos, k'maiset tzoli shel Shabbos. Just like if you put, if you roast it. K'maiset tzoli shel Shabbos. If you actually, it's coming to say that if you actually turn it over, but the cooking comes from the coals. So that would be just like putting the yeast, the sourdough on top of the dough. Over there, you don't have to turn it over. Over here, you do have to turn it over. But whatever the case is, the same halacha would apply. It's as if you did the action. Okay, let's leave it over here. We're up to Gufa on Nun Zion. It's 4 lines down. Okay, have a good Shabbos, everyone.
You're going to be back Sunday.
I'll be back Sunday, yeah.
I don't need lunch.